I would say the first year that I used the iPad, the biggest thing that I found was I really used it as a substitution tool. Instead of handing kids pieces of paper, they downloaded things off my website and viewed things on their iPad. And it wasn't until really the second year of using the iPad that I started to redefine and completely modify my lessons and give them kind of a new purpose behind what I wanted them to do. It changed the way I organized my classroom, changed the way I communicate with my kids. I would say that it made my classroom completely transparent by year two. Parents, kids could go on and see what I was doing on any various day and see what was going on. If a kid misses 2 or 3 classes in a row, they can go onto my webpage and there was a daily lesson plan put up there where they could kind of track exactly what we were doing. I would say it made me, as well as the kids, always aware of learning that was going on in the classroom, and it held the kids accountable for the learning that was going on at all times. And again, I wouldn't say that it changed really what I teach, but it really just changed how I teach.
I think the iPad in Mr. Vilk's class has definitely transformed learning because it's made us more aware of what we're learning. We have the iPad, which is a tool, but it's a very instrumental tool.
If I were just to have the kids look at the poem and analyze the poem and then discuss it within their groups and merely looking at it on the iPad, that would really just be me substituting handing out paper for them. But what the iPad allowed us to do was to record, again, each individual group, put it up on the website, on my school website, and give kids links to other groups' discussions and allow them to view and critique other groups, where before we weren't allowed to do that. So when you talk about redefining a lesson, this allows full accountability for all kids, and this allows us to take it to that next step past that substitution model and into that augmentation and that modification, that redefinition model, and change the lesson so the lesson itself is more than just a discussion, but it actually has a full-on different purpose.
It's a great resource. So in this class, if I don't get a piece of poetry, I don't have to go up to Mr. Vilk and ask him, like, what does this mean? What does this symbolize? I can go up on the internet and find like a textbook example of how they break down the poem, and I think that's really resourceful.
The first day of the lesson, I gave the kids a poem to break down on their own. I gave the kids a poem from Emily Dickinson that they downloaded onto their iPad and they all read and broke down themselves. And what they used to break that down was what we call the typecast model. And that's they take a look, they look at the title, the paraphrase, the connotation, attitude, shift, title, and theme of the various poem that was given to them. Help them try to break down the poem a little bit deeper level for the AP test. Now, that first day was merely on their own where the kids had their iPads and were kind of working individually through what they had to do on their iPad. Now, the second day of the lesson is really where we got into the modification and the redefinition of really what the lesson is. And what we were able to do there is we actually went to the library, because the library allowed for a little bit more of an open space, allows us to spread out as a class, and give the kids a much more comfortable environment for discussion. And within the library, we put the kids in at tables in groups of 4 or 5. And within those groups, 1 kid per group was in charge of downloading an app called YouTube Capture. And with that app, what we did is we made sure that each group recorded their discussions and their individual breakdowns that they used finding the typecast model with the Emily Dickinson poem. And what that allowed us to do, and me to do as a teacher, was actually not only view each group's discussion later on, but allow for every other group to look at, listen to, and comment on every other group's discussion that actually happened that day. And I think one thing to think about as you look at these lessons is that before the iPad, when you walk away from a group, you don't know what's going on after you leave that group. Where now, I was able to hold every kid accountable. I was able to give every kid credit for something great he said, and then share that with other groups, not just within that class period, but within other class periods too.
Right off the bat from AP Lit, we started downloading applications that allowed us to annotate documents. And basically there's just one application that it was free to download, and we're able to annotate documents, write anything on there, answer questions, and then share it right back with our teacher. So it's very efficient, being that our teacher can share us a document with us, we can do all the assignments, and even share it with other students, and then send them back to him.
When you look at the iPad and you give kids the iPad, the iPad by itself works as a substitution tool. It's really the teacher that needs to come up with the idea, develop, modify, and redefine the lesson. I think one of the biggest mistakes is people think just by having the iPad, I've now redefined my classroom. But that's not really the case. The iPad doesn't redefine the classroom. The teacher does that, but the iPad is a tool in which that happens.